Hello, and welcome back to Factorio. I am Dorthak. This is episode 7 of our Let's Play walkthrough tutorial series in Factorio 0.17. In the last episode, we finished setting up our starter base, our jump-off base, which produces all of the parts we're going to need to start building our main base. We also built a little bit of defenses here on the east side. We put down a few turrets, and we also put down a few turrets here on the west side. Where are they? Right here. We're going to need a few more because we have several biter nests around us. There's one over here, there's several here, a few over there. But for now, we're mostly being attacked from those directions. The reason for that is, if we turn on the pollution cloud, you can see that the pollution has reached this section, and it has reached this section. You can see the pollution cloud blinking over the red area, and that is because the biters consume the pollution. That's how biters work. They consume pollution and use it to generate more biters to generate their attack waves. So this nest is definitely being hit. This nest is being hit. This one will be hit soon, so we can probably start expecting some attacks from the southeast here. This one is okay for now. It's not going to last very long. So what we probably need is a few more turrets down this way, and that should hold us for a little bit. So let's go put those down. Do we have any in our inventory? We do not. Fortunately, we're making some in our base, so we will run over there and grab some. Somewhere around here there were turrets, I believe. Yes. Too far away. We should also get some more ammunition. We don't have much of the good stuff, so let's take some of the less good stuff. It'll be fine. Have we made enough engines? And we have some engines. Fantastic. Alright, so I picked up 8 engines, and I'm going to also pick up some steel, and we'll see the point of that in just a bit. Let's get some turrets down. I'm going to go around this side. And I'm just going to throw a few down here for the moment. Less far apart. Something like that. And I'm just right-clicking to put 10 or so magazines into each one, just enough to get us a little bit of protection. Once we have more of our base built up, we will come up with far more elaborate and robust defense. Okay, the next thing we should do is refill the magazines on the other side, but it's a long walk, so what we're going to do is speed things up. One of the most useful things you can build early in the game is a car. As you can see, it requires iron plate, steel plates, and 8 engine units. Conveniently, that's exactly what we grabbed, so let us build a car. And I like to have the car on my toolbar, because we use it a lot. Now the car is really funny, I think, because you take the car out of your pocket, you put it down next to you, and then you press enter to get into it. Now as you can see, it's not running very well because we need to give it fuel. Cars will run on anything that they can burn, and cars also have a machine gun that you can load with ammo and fire, and that's nice. We are done with researching projectile physical damage, so we can start one of our next researches. Let's do weapon shooting speed, since that is immediately useful to us. Now, driving the car is a little bit tricky. When you walk, you just use WASD as you would expect. The takes you to the right, A takes you to the left, S down, W up, all is well and good. When you're driving, though, you have to drive it like a car. W is forward, S is brake and then reverse, and A and D steer it from the point of view of the car. So if you're facing down, the controls are reversed. It can be a little bit tricky. If you've ever... Oh, there comes a big wave of fighters. Let's go shoot them. And what I'm doing is holding the spacebar and trying to stay out of them. Now the car does have the gun that is very powerful, but it is not very well armored. So if the biters can get you bogged down, they will kill you. Don't let it happen. Now clearly this is the place where most of our attacks are happening. So we're going to beef up our defenses a little bit here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put one more turret here. And let's put one more here. The second thing I would like to do in terms of beefing up our defenses is to put up some walls, but we don't have any. So let's jump in the car and go get some. Again, we're fortunately making some in our base here. I'll just take one step. Now the important thing is, the car, as I said, is tricky to drive, and if you run into things, you can damage those things and you can damage the car itself. For example, as you can see, I just hit the pole and damaged it and damaged my car. Now if I hit it much harder than that, I could have broken the pole entirely and would have had to replace it. It happens a lot. Driving is tricky. If you hit a rock, well, you'll damage the car a lot more than you'll damage the rock. So try not to. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our stone walls and just build a little box around the turrets. Biters are drawn to attack certain structures. They like to attack turrets, they like to attack radars, well, and they like to attack you. So by putting the walls in them, the biters will have to batter through the wall first. They will do that eventually, but it'll give the guns more time to shoot them in place. Oh, and there's a power pole. Driving at night is also tricky. Let's throw a light here just a bit better. Nope, we don't have power there, and I don't want to run a line. Alright, a little bit of light. That's it. Alright, we're now going to start work on our main base. The base that we will use for most pretty much all the rest of the game, certainly through the launch of the rocket. But before we can do that, I want to talk about smelting. Now, we've done smelting several ways. We've done kind of small-scale smelting of one thing at a time, and now we're smelting in these columns here. We've got iron being smelted, we've got stone being smelted into brick, copper. We're going to need a lot of smelting, and smelting takes up a lot of space. Now, usually when I play this myself, I build the bus, what we call the main part of the base, first, and then add smelting. But smelting takes up a lot of space, so I'm going to start by building up our smelting array, just one, to use as a space guide to let us see where we need to go. One thing to note: I picked up the car. And when you pick it up, it empties it of everything that was in it. Fuel, ammo, etc. So you have to refuel it, and if you're going to use it for combat, rearm it each time. Let's pick up a few more things here before we go to start building. We have a lot of furnaces, and that's good. We also we have tons of belts. We are going to want a few more splitters. We're going to want... we're fine on undergrounds for the moment. What we really need is more inserters. There we go. That'll get us going. We have repair packs. Is there anything else that's useful for us to take here? Oh, grenades. Let's take some grenades. And let's put our grenades on the toolbar. Grenades are good weapons, but their most important use is to clear trees, because trees take a lot of time to clear by hand. Alright, back to research. None of these are immediately necessary. We're going to take stronger explosives because it makes our grenades better, which will help us with clearing trees. And then we will proceed to work on everything else. Car, fuel. Now, we need a nice, long, clear space for our smelting array, and I think that we're going to put it right, the first one of them, right about here. So, there's many ways to do anything in Factorio, including building smelting arrays, but this is a very, very common way. This is how most of us do it. The reason we do it this way is because of limitations. Factorio is a game of bottlenecks. How fast you can produce things, how fast you can move things, how fast sometimes even you can consume things, all impact the game. In this case, our limiting factor is belt speed. If you mouse over a yellow belt, you will see on the right side that it says belt speed 15 items per second. So we cannot put more than 15 items per second onto a yellow belt, but on the other hand, we don't really want to put less than that either, because that's a waste of capability. So we're going to build a smelting array that can smelt iron, or copper, or stone brick, exactly 15 of them per second. Now, as it turns out, there's a ratio here. And this is a ratio that you just learn, or memorize, or look up, and that's 48. You need 48 stone furnaces to exactly fill one of these belts. So we're going to run a line of them down here. An easy way to measure things is if you pick up the deconstruction planner here, the red one, and select what you have. You can see there it shows 19. So we need to place 5 more. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that's 24, and we said that we need 48. But of course we want to fill the belt from both sides. 15 items per second is both sides combined. Each side has 7.5. So we're going to build a second column. We're going to leave 1, 2, 3 spaces in between, and run a second row, or column, whichever you want to prefer, call it, of the same length. Now, we're going to run a belt down the middle, and this is going to be our output belt. So we're going to take an inserter, and we're going to make sure that each and every furnace has an inserter outputting to the belt. And I'm putting them in pairs like this for a reason, because it'll make it more efficient to power them up, because as you can see, the inserters need power. Let's go back to our research screen. We're going to research the military science pack. We're not going to start producing it until our next base is built, but we might as well get started on the research. And now we have to do it again on the other side. And honestly, this is the most tedious part of building one of these arrays for me, because you can't just run with it the way I could with the belt or with the furnace. Alright, so that's our output. Now we need input as well. And again, there's a kind of standard way to build it. And we've seen most of this already. We're going to put one input belt on each side. Let's see. Landfill is can be useful. It lets us fill holes made by lakes by water, but we don't need that yet. But we might as well research it. So the input belts we're going to want to feed in exactly the same way that we did over here. Half a belt of iron ore, half a belt of coal. So we're going to set up the same kind of setup with the kissing inserters. So this will be our input for iron ore. To get an input for coal, we're going to do this. Actually, coal is coming from the right, so we're going to need to reverse that. And then we'll put the splitter here and feed it in like this. So what'll happen is coal will come in here, some of it will get split off and put on the belts, and the rest will carry over so that we can build another array just like this one right next to it. Now, as we said, 48 of these exactly fills one yellow belt. And because the ratio of producing iron or copper plate is 1:1, one iron ore produces one iron plate, that means this array will use up one full belt of iron, which is why we're feeding in one belt of iron here, and splitting it so that each half of the array has half of them. Now we need more inserters, so let's go pick some up. Landfill is finished. We can do fluid handling. Now, one thing I just did by accident, and I will want to point out, is I control-clicked on coal, which filled the fuel tank, but also put all my coal into the car's trunk. Now, the car's trunk can be very useful for moving things around, but the thing you have to remember is if you pick the car up, you have to pick up everything in its trunk. So if your inventory is full and you have a lot of things in your trunk, you may not be able to pick up the car. And the problem in my experience with not picking up the car is that I at least tend to lose it. I tend to drop it somewhere and then run off and do something else and leave the car where it is, which is annoying because then I search for my car. I'll occasionally make two cars with one being used for reserve so I can then go find my first car. Lately, I've been trying to just pick up the car every time. Oh, there goes a radar. Let's fix that. Our next research is advanced material processing. Advanced material processing will let us make steel furnaces. Currently, we're using, of course, the stone furnaces. We don't need the steel furnaces yet, but they're an interesting thing to talk about right now, as we're putting down more of these inserters. So I'm going to place the inserters exactly the same way, one per machine, because they're more than fast enough to get both coal and iron into the smelter, the furnace. Now, the reason the steel furnaces are interesting is that the only difference between a steel furnace and a stone furnace is that the steel furnace works exactly twice as fast. If you mouse over one of these, you will see on the right it says crafting speed 1. The crafting speed on a steel furnace is 2. It still requires one iron ore to produce one iron plate, or copper, or whatever, but it works twice as fast. It's also exactly the same size as a stone furnace. What that means is that eventually we will be able to take this array and upgrade it. If we give it the steel furnaces, we can produce materials twice as fast. Of course, it means we have to feed and remove the products twice as fast, since this will exactly fill a yellow belt. Fortunately, later on we will get red belts, and red belts are exactly twice as fast as yellow belts. So it becomes a very convenient combination. Now we need to get some power down here. And there, you can wire these in many different ways, but there's a trick to doing it efficiently, and that's what we're going to do. So if I place one right here, this covers 3 machines, which means the next one here, again, will cover three inserters. If I were to put this one here, to match, then I would need another one there. So this saves me a little bit, I think about 3 power poles per array. And later on that doesn't matter, but right now resources are pretty scarce. So we want to be sure to use as few items as possible to get what we need. Now, if we place matching ones here, that'll cover the middle inserters since they're close enough. And then one more set of them will get the rest of the array wire. And that's our completed array. Now, obviously, we need to feed it coal, and we need to feed it ore, but it is done. Let's get started on railroads. Railroads are very, very important later on, but we're not there yet. So, this array will do us a lot of good, so we're going to blueprint it and put it in our blueprint book. Now this gives us an image of the blueprint, but I want to get rid of this power pole. It is not actually needed for the array, and I don't know, when I'm using this blueprint later, I don't know which way power is going to come in. So over here, I can mouse over it and right-click, and you will see this number here drop. Right? Instead of 25 power poles, we need 24, and that's exactly right. We're gonna name this blueprint Smelting Stone. Stone in this case referring to stone furnaces. And the icons here are handy. It tells us it's a stone furnace yellow belt array. And we're going to hit B and put this into our walkthrough blueprint book. Now you'll notice it didn't get its name, and that's because I messed up. I'm going to right click, hit this again, and say Smelting Stone, and press enter. It's very important to press enter, otherwise it will not save the name. There we are. Alright, so we're going to need a lot more of them, but this gives us a good idea of how big this array is. As you can see, it's fairly long, and we need to allow room for it. What we're going to do is we're going to run a row of arrays eventually over to the left from here, the parallel ones, and then we're going to run our main bus from here to the right. Let's get the next research. And the research that's on the left is always whichever is cheapest, so since I don't need any of these specifically right now, I'm just doing them in the order of cheapest to most expensive. So, now it's time to talk about our bus. So, the idea of a bus is to organize how we do things. We're going to have a lot of rows of belts with all sorts of resources that we need. And we're going to use those belts to feed all of our machines. So smelters will put things onto the bus here. The bus will run to the right. And then we're going to build above and below the bus other sections of the base that build various other things. Some of them will take things off the bus, some of them will put things on the bus. Now, the normal way to organize the bus is in groups of 4 belts. And the reason for that is 4 is the distance that a yellow belt can jump over. Can't go any further than that. So this allows us to bring things in and out of the bus. And then we make a gap of 2 and do another section of 4 belts. Because, again, this allows us to jump over and jump over again. You don't have to do this way. Some people build their buses solid and then just make jumps in the bus themselves, because we can certainly do something like this to allow things to pass through, but it's generally more efficient to go across the bus the way I showed. Now, we need a lot of materials on the bus. So I'm going to cut and copy this and paste down a bunch. What we want on our bus, from experience, what we want is... there's a tree in the way, so I'm going to hit shift as I click, and it'll mark the tree for deconstruction. Now, we don't have, it doesn't really matter, we don't have robots, but that's okay. From experience, what we want on our main bus is 8 to 10 of these sections. 8, 9, 10. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? However, we also need things on the bus that require a lot of input. The two main ones for this is going to be iron gears and green circuits. Now, we could feed them separately, but instead what we're going to do is we're going to add a few more sections to the bus just for those two, and then we're going to get rid of those. They're not going to continue. So for iron gears, we need 4 more belts, and for green circuits, we need 10 more belts. So 1, 2, 3 more of these sections. Now that's a pretty wide bus, and you certainly don't have to make it that wide immediately, but the danger is if you're building on both sides, you're going to run out of space if you don't give yourself enough. One way to deal with that is some people only build on one side of the bus. In that case, you can always make the bus wider. Let's queue up our next research. Circuit network is a very useful but very complicated kind of thing. We'll talk about it in detail much later. Now, this is also where grenades come in. We have all these trees, and I can certainly chop them one at a time. And I will do that if I need wood, which I don't think I need right now. But a more useful thing to do is just to hit them with grenades. When you pick up a grenade in your hand, you get this green circuit. That's how far you can throw a grenade. And right now it'll take 2 grenades to blow up the trees nearby. Make sure you don't throw close to you because you will kill yourself or hurt yourself. And you also don't want to throw close to things that you've built because it'll damage stuff. The good news is blueprints aren't actually there, so they don't get damaged by grenades, which makes it very convenient to put down blueprints, see which trees are in the way, and then throw grenades at them. Unfortunately, grenades do not work well on rocks, so those have to be taken out the old-fashioned. So, this is going to be the start of our base. We're going to use this as our bus design, and we're going to go east to the right from here. Now, obviously, there are things that get in the way that'll interfere with that, but we will deal with those as they come up. When using grenades for tree clearance, I urge you to go slowly, lest you kill yourself at first. There's a little bit of a trick to doing them right. Now, we're not going to build all of the smelting arrays we possibly need right now, because we don't have the resources for it, but we need at least 2 important things. We need iron and copper, and steel, but steel is a little bit different. So what we're going to do is we're going to put down another blueprint this is going to be for a second material, but we're not going to fill it out completely. Because realistically, we don't need a full array's worth of things. Later, of course, we're going to need many arrays worth of things. That was much further than I planned to go. Let's go to here. In fact, I'm going to cut these lines here because I don't want to consume that much material. Now, of course, this central one we do need to take all the way out, because it needs to come all the way out to the output. And we're only going to fill in 2 right here. and we are out of insert. So we have accomplished quite a bit here. I will finish filling out this array between episodes, since the rest of it is fairly obvious. The one thing I wanted to remind you of is power poles, and only power poles. If you place over one, hold the button, and drag, it will only place them where they need to be in the blueprint. And I'm going to run power poles all the way down because they're useful for connecting electricity, and the array can kind of serve as our electrical backbone for other things, and at least until we get better power. So with that, let's take a look at what we did today. It may not seem like a whole lot, but this was under attack, so we may want to reinforce this, and we're out of ammo. That's very bad. So I will refill their ammo between episodes. But we beefed up our defenses over here and over here. And we got a start on building our main base. We built one full and one kind of third of array, and we've planned out our main base. So in the meanwhile, why don't you go ahead and try one of these yourself? And as always, don't forget to save.